Our state's natural beauty is on display everywhere you look, and of course it's always changing. At places like the North Carolina Arboretum in Asheville, for example. There you will also find an art form that is never finished. Living plants are the canvas. Curator Arthur Jura oversees care of the Arboretum's outstanding collection of bonsai.
I like to tell people that bonsai are not special plants, but plants grown in a special way. A lot of people have a mistaken idea about how a bonsai comes about. You can work with just about any plant. There are certain characteristics that you might tend to favor because they go well with the bonsai practice. One is you like things that have smallish sized leaves, and you also like things that can take pruning well because the pruning is such an integral part of the whole process. So it's an artistic thing in the composition aspect of it and creating something of beauty and interest to look at. But on the other hand, it's also a very intensive horticultural practice because you can't go taking away from a plant unless that plant is really, really healthy, and it has to be successfully grown before you can do any of the artistic stuff with it. These plants offer a pretty instructive glimpse into how we go about training a plant. This wire is a very common one, and the wire is wrapped around the branch, and then the branch can be bent and the wire will hold it in the shape that you give it. Here we see a plant that looks like it's 3 separate trees, but it's actually one tree that we laid down and took 3 branches and stood them upright and started training them as trees.
Arthur likes working with native species like dogwood, birch, and various evergreens, although there are many specimens from all over the world. And it's fascinating to watch a bonsai artist at work. Here, condensed into a few minutes, is a process that took several hours of work on this single plant.
This is a Suriname cherry, or Eugenia uniflora is the botanic name for it. This is about as tall as you ever want a bonsai to get. It's overgrown right now. If you look at it, you'll see that the shape is poorly defined. You have a lot of these long shoots coming out at all different angles. Bonsai is largely an organizing game, and when things get this untidy and disorganized, then we have to come in and amend things with the scissors. So one of the questions that's asked a lot is how do you know what to cut? Well, there aren't little numbers on the underside of the leaves to make it easy, but after a while, from looking at bonsai over a long period of time and having some idea of what you want to begin with, then you can go ahead and take away everything that doesn't look like it belongs. Over the long course of time, this is how we keep it small. It's not a case of not allowing the plant to grow, it's just not letting it grow as much as it wants to. Controlled growth. This plant, we've been working on this plant here at the Arboretum for 10 years now. Often hear from people, oh, I couldn't do that. That's too meticulous, or you have to have too much patience for that. I don't know, maybe it encourages patience the more that you do it. We generally try to avoid having heavy branches in the upper part of the tree. It's difficult over the long haul to keep all your branches up top small because they're increasing as the tree ages. But at some point you may get to look at a branch and say that's too big for where it is, and that's how I feel about this. So I'm going to think about taking that off. I need to approach this the right way here, and rather than make a finish cut first, I'll go ahead and take the mass and the weight away, like that. And this is the point where you hope not to have your heart sink and say, oh, bad decision. But I don't feel that way, so it's okay. And then squeeze it off. The removal of this branch was a fairly significant change in the overall appearance of the tree. And as I look at it now, I feel like it was a good move to have made. Anytime you grow a plant in a container, it reaches a point when there's no more room in the container for the roots to grow. The plant has to grow. It can never be prohibited from growing. So instead of taking it out and moving it into a bigger container, which is what usually happens with container-grown plants, we trim roots, trim them back, just as we trim back the top of the tree, and you get the same result. You cut a root back, it doesn't die, it sends out new points of growth back behind the cut. Now we're not going to pot the plant right in the middle. We're going to put it to one side of that center line or another, and that's kind of dictated by the movement of the tree. Firm it in there. A lot of what we do in bonsai is studying the form that mature trees take and then trying to mimic it. So yes, we want to expose these roots. We want to make sure that they're visible because it lends a feeling of age and it gives you the sense of the tree having some permanency. It's clasping the ground out of which it grows. But that's pretty much what we need to do with this plant today.
Multiply the hours spent on one plant by more than 100 plants in the collection, and you have a sense of the time and effort it takes to maintain it. Recently, the Arboretum broke ground for a building that will move the bonsai collection from the back lot to a major new garden near the visitor center.
We're going to have these plants right up front where everybody can experience them in a garden specifically designed for their presentation. And that's going to really increase the impact that they have on the general visitor. And it'll be something that everybody in the state will be proud of when they come and see what we've got here.